Hello. This is part two that I promised in what would have been my debate with Nico. Let me start off by telling him what I agree with him on. I agree with him that there's nothing wrong with being a nationalist. Being a nationalist basically just means that you have pride in your nation and that you want to see your nation flourish and you put your nation first. However, that's about as far as I get when it comes to telling him what I agree with him on. It seems like the majority of his video was just him saying, "Nuh-uh, that didn't happen. That's not true. There's no evidence of that." And essentially a bunch of people giving feedback that I don't know what I'm talking about, that I haven't studied the subject. Um, well, I graduated high school with awards in history. I have been fascinated with what went on in Europe during World War II since my early years of middle school, so about fifth grade. I've been studying Nazism. I read Mein Kampf. I know a lot about what Hitler talked about. However, fear not, I debate SJWs, Antifa, and feminists all the time. So make no mistake, you guys are not the first people to talk down to me and tell me, you don't know what you're talking about. It's pretty much par for the course for what I do. So, just a quick recap that I actually went out of my way to reference and to tell you about the primary sources, such as the handwritten letter by Heimlich Himmler and the authorization of what was the program to execute people with learning disabilities and schizophrenia. Um, Essentially, that's about what I gave you then. I'm not sure what you're talking about when you say the German archives. Um, can't quite say I believe that you read everything that was in there, because that was quite a history of Germany there. Essentially, I'll just continue on with my arguments, and I will make it very clear that there is primary sources, there are photos. I don't think the Allied troops were in there taking pictures of Heimlich Himmler outside of brothels. And I'll make it very clear that I actually never once said that the Nazis were rapists. The closest I got to that was I said they allowed women to be raped in order to benefit and incentivize male workers. These buildings still exist. You can still see them. If this is not something that maybe even so much as convinces you to take a second look, I'm afraid I can't help you. So I'll just continue with what would have been part two of my response in that debate. It's pretty par for the core that whenever somebody tries to excuse Adolf Hitler's actions, it kind of goes something like this. Hey, he did it for the survival of the German people. They were hurt and they needed help, and it was a dirty job, but somebody had to do it. Because I actually have studied World War One, not as much as World War Two, but I know quite a bit about World War One as well. Having said that, this idea that Adolf Hitler is some type of wonderful savior of the people and is someone to be idolized, I'd just like to start off by explaining to everyone about the Nico Creed, which was issued on March 19th, 1945. This was not even 2 months before Germany lost and surrendered. Adolf Hitler said that in this decree essentially everything that could be used by the Allies, anything of value, anything of military advantage, would be destroyed. He ordered it destroyed. However, Albert Spencer, his Minister of War Production, actually straight up disobeyed this order. He disobeyed this order because there's no point to following it. This was right before Germany's defeat. It's pretty obvious he's going to lose. There's no point to doing more damage to this country that has to be done. It already wasn't in very good condition. Albert Speer, can't be sure I'm pronouncing that right, actually went ahead and told Adolf Hitler this himself. He told Hitler that he disobeyed him, and Hitler must have been in a very odd, merciful mood because he actually allowed him to live. He chewed him out, but he allowed him to leave the bunker, where Hitler would meet his inevitable end. The second thing I'd like to point out is I think we can all agree that children are important to culture. Anyone who disrespects the children, attempts to mistreat the children, is probably, I think we can say, mistreating the future of the country and the culture. I'd like to tell you about some of the atrocious, horrible things that the Nazis did to children. I'd like to, but why would I, when Hans Sugstag, again, probably not pronouncing that right, an eyewitness and a victim of this can tell you about it himself. At the age of 15, he was given half a day's worth of training and given an anti-tank rocket and sent to the front lines of battle. Being 15 for me was a pretty wild time. I'm going to go ahead and say that I don't think anybody after half a day of training at the age of 15 can just be handed a rocket and say, all right, go on. But what's even worse than this is that, according to him, they executed hundreds, if not thousands, of children. German children, part of the Hitler Youth, just wanted to go home. Executed and shot them because they dared to disobey. Kids were taken out of school early. The younger ones were offered chocolate and lollipops. According to Hein, the older ones were given cigarettes and alcohol. He then later called this the most cynical recruiting tactic possible because this was near the end of the war. Just like destroying the buildings, this was all completely pointless. My third and final point I'd like to bring up is the destruction of Christianity under Hitler's rule. Hitler is pretty famous for saying to his architect and complaining, "It has always been the misfortune of the German people to have the wrong religion," referred to Christianity as Jewish filth and priestly twaddle. Having debated atheists on this matter before, I assure you there is a lot longer that I can go on talking about this. In 1941, Goebbels, can't promise you I'm pronouncing that right, but Goebbels, the Minister of Propaganda, said that the Fuhrer is an enemy of Christianity, although for public reasons he refused to let him leave the church. So basically, in order to keep up appearances, Hitler ordered that he stay a part of the church. Christianity, it seems, just like the children of Germany and just like buildings of Germany, were nothing more than tools to him. And perhaps the most telling about just how full of crap Adolf Hitler was about caring about the German people, about wanting the German people to thrive no matter what. Perhaps the more telling thing than his life is his death. How did Adolf Hitler die? Did he die bravely defending the buildings that he claimed to have loved? Did he die fighting alongside the children that he so senselessly put into the front lines when it was very well over? Did he die professing for his love and asking forgiveness of Jesus Christ for everything that he's ever done? No. Adolf Hitler slunk away to an underground bunker like a child caught doing something filthy. And after everything he did, after all the atrocity he committed, he did not even have the man parts to face the world. Instead, at the end of the war, he fired what I consider to be the greatest shot in the entire war, and he killed himself in his bunker. Adolf Hitler did not die some heroic hero. His Third Reich that he prophesied would last 100 years didn't even last half that long. He died a coward, and there is nothing admirable about a man who dies a coward. But, nonetheless, let it never be said that I am not a man of my word. I did say, at least I meant to. If I didn't, then I apologize. But as a reward for sticking around till the end of this debate, I will say one nice thing about Adolf Hitler and the Nazis. And that is that Adolf Hitler and the Nazis were pretty good at manipulating people. The fact that there are people out there who still think that Hitler did nothing wrong, there's actually no evidence of this. People think Hitler was some great leader and virtuous person. I assure you he was not. Adolf Hitler, if anything, was more like an abusive boyfriend to Germany. He loved it as long as he could control it. The second he couldn't control it anymore, they could all be damned to hell. The children could die, the buildings could be destroyed, and the religion sucked. I could go on. The only struggle in this debate is trying to sum up every atrocity that the Nazis did in such a short period of time. But without further ado, this concludes what would have been my final talking point. There you go.